And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce an author from the game of golf and the art of business, and I'm going to booger his last name, but please welcome to the show, if you will, Scott Seifferlein. How'd we do, Scott?
Good morning. Very close. Hey, don't worry about it. I just figured it out last week. Tough one. It's Seifferlein.
Seifferlein, okay. Well, welcome to the show, Scott. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. How about you?
Good, yeah. So I see here you've written 2 books. You have Stop Slicing in 5 Swings, The 7 Golf Myths, and Destroying Your Game, and you also have The Game of Golf and the Art of Business.
Yes.
Why did you decide to write those books? I know you're very successful, very great golfer. You've trained some of the best. What led you to write these books?
I've been interested in writing books for several years, but didn't know exactly the process of how to go through it, get it published. And then just over a year ago, I was fortunate to be introduced to Greg Smith, who is now my publisher, and he's based out of Holland, Michigan. And he helped me through the process of getting it done.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your books. Tell us what they're about, what they help people do.
Sure. The first book I published, The Game of Golf and the Art of Business, is an entertaining story about a character that I took through a round of golf at the famous Bethpage Black Golf Course. It's famous for hosting 2 U.S. Opens, and it's also a course that I'm familiar with, having played in 2 New York State Opens. And we go out and play a round of golf out there, and he desires to be able to accomplish or conquer the golf course, I should say, and he hires me to coach him through this round of golf. And through that round, he discovers many different challenges, and we talk about how to overcome those challenges, how they relate to the golf course, and beating each hole. But then we also discover that each one of those challenges is related to an area of his business and life, and how we can overcome those. So we give, at the end of each chapter, we give tips on the business and life aspect of it as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, why do you think golf is such a great business sport? Because I love playing golf. I'm horrible at it, by the way, just absolutely terrible. But I love playing it, and it's just such a great networking tool. You go out there, you play golf, trap someone on the golf course for hours at a time, and they have to sit there, drink beer, and listen to you the whole time. But why do you think it's such a great networking tool?
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic because you have a captive audience for a period of at least 2 hours if you're playing 9, or at least 4 hours if you're generally playing 18 holes. And it's also in an atmosphere where neither person has the upper hand. It's not in a office setting or boardroom setting. So it's an equal setting. And where else can you find yourself in a situation where no matter how good you are, you're going to have moments of failure. You're going to have a shot where it goes into the trees and everybody, it's like, oh, even the best players have things like that happen to them. So it's an excellent avenue to build relationships.
Definitely. What was the hardest part about, you said writing this book? You said you didn't think you could write a book, you always wanted to. What was the hardest part out of all this to write these 2 books?
The hardest part is just getting started. You've got these ideas, but you're basically working off of a blank slate, and you're thinking, okay, how do I actually put this together? And I have a busy career, working upwards of 14 hours each day, so when do you find the time to do it?
Definitely. Did you find the second book easier to write than the first?
Yes, the second book is actually a smaller version of, it's a larger version of a very small report that I had done. So I had already done some of the legwork for it, and it's an instruction book, so I've written many instruction articles. And that was much easier for me because I've already written so many of the articles, and I've put them. And then the work part of that was putting it together and getting that published in a fun, entertaining format.
So tell us about the business side of writing a book. What's that been like? Has it been good for business?
It has. It's opened up opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I found that generally I wasn't hired as a speaker to talk about slicing or to talk about how to hit a chip shot, things like that, from a business aspect to corporations in the area. And now that I've published The Game of Golf and the Art of Business, I've had several companies that have already hired me to do keynote presentations at their company event. There's two large insurance companies and a financial advisor company that teamed up with a CPA company. So that it's opened up doors that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and then that trickles down into ultimately my core business of coaching.
So I have a question around that as well. How do you provide an engaging speech without stealing thunder from the book, or do you not worry about that and they just complement each other?
Well, my publisher did a great job of helping me build a keynote presentation that highlights topics of several of the chapters in the book, but we actually take different stories. We don't use the stories in the book. We take stories from my own experiences playing competitively, and also I take some stories of clients that I've worked with from both a standpoint of when they've struggled and from when they've had success.
Could we impose on you to share a brief story maybe that helps illustrate a key point from one of the books?
Sure. One of the topics in my book is a topic on grinding, and I'll tell you a short story about when I played in the 2005 New York State Open. I was at a qualifier for it. I wasn't exempt for it, but I was at a qualifier, and through 14 holes, I was 6 over par. So typically at a state open like that, 2, maybe 3 over par gets in. So here I am on the 15th tee, 4 holes to play, no chance of qualifying, right?
Right.
Not feeling very good. You just kind of want to bury your head in the sand at that point. And so I tee off on 15 and basically just shank it all over into the barranca, and I'm real frustrated, slash another ball out. Somehow I'm up by the green and on my third shot, and but I'm still grinding away at it. I'm still thinking, okay, I've just got to go through the process and hit a good shot here. I'm looking at it from every angle. I give it the old Arnold Palmer hitch, and then I hit the shot, and it takes the slope, and it's a double breaker, chip shot, and it goes in. So that was surprising, but I'm still at 5 over at that point, so still not a lot of hope to qualify for this tournament. The next hole I get up there, hit one about 20 feet, and I'm looking at that putt from every angle, trying to make that one for the Gipper, and that one goes in. So then the 17th hole is a par 5, and not too difficult, but you still got to hit some good shots. So I hit a couple good shots up there, and I'm just offside the green, hit a real nice chip shot, and up to 6 feet, and that one goes in. So now I'm on 3 birdies in a row after a real tough day, but I just kept grinding, and all of a sudden I started to feel some confidence at this point. You know, I wasn't exactly like Ian Poulter at the Ryder Cup and zoned in like that, but I was starting to get the feeling that I was grooved in. And the last hole was a real tough par 4, long par 4, and I hit pretty solid drive and started to really feel like I was in the zone at that point, and just pured an iron shot in there to about 4 feet and rolled that in for my 4th birdie in a row, and that sealed my trip to the New York State Open. I was able to qualify and play in that tournament. So that was a cool example of, you know, when things aren't going well, you still stay focused on the process and grind through the process rather than focused on the result and getting frustrated, then you have at least a chance. It doesn't always happen perfectly like that, but you have at least a chance of falling back into that zone. So that's kind of a good example of a story that I share with people. When things aren't going well, they always ask me, well, how do you get into the zone? And it's not something you can just automatically turn on, but if you go through the steps of focusing on the process, it increases your odds of falling back into the zone and really performing at your best.
Wow, I love that story. That's great. So can you just talk about the key points of actually, I would love to talk about the game of golf and the art of business. What are the key points you want people to take away from that book?
Implementation, hopefully. I've set it up as an entertaining story, so that's the number one thing. They're going to enjoy the book. And I've had a lot of people that say, you know, this was a great book because I was able to sit down and read it in one night. It's 160 some odd pages, and I was able to read it in 3-4 hours. And I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the stories and the experiences that the client had with you. But at the end of each chapter, I have a takeaway that they could also apply to their business. So that's what my hope is that they'll take that away and apply it to their business and see success as a result of that.
Okay. Have you had anyone actually take them out on the golf course and sort of walk them through this experience, like a live interactive book where you do that? People hire you to actually take you through playing golf and also the business practices?
Well, we're still working on that exactly as you said it. As my core business, I do many coaching sessions on the course where we take them through strategy on the course. And I've been applying a few of the chapters in the book. I have fun with some of my clients now because now that I have the book out, I give them examples and I say, no, that was from chapter 7 of the book. So they get a kick out of that.
So the title that caught my eye was "Stop Slicing in 5 Swings: The 7 Golf Myths That Are Destroying Your Game." Can it really be done in 5 swings? Can you make meaningful progress? And what are one or two of these myths that we ought to know about?
Yes, to answer your first question on the stop slicing, there's 4 key areas that cause a slice. And through proper evaluation, you discover which one is the most predominant. And usually, if you handle that, you can usually get them to stop their slice. Sometimes it's more than one of those key 4 areas, but for most people, it's just 1, sometimes 2 at the most. I've really rarely ever run into somebody that has 3 to 4 of the slice factors that are causing their slice. Usually it's just 1 or 2.
Huh.
So once I take them through the evaluation and get them to understand that that's what's causing their slice, then I take them through movement patterns without hitting a ball to change their body movement and motion patterns, and that gives them a different feeling, and then it produces a different result with the path and the angle of the club face if it strikes the ball. And within 5 swings of them hitting balls, then they're not slicing, usually less. So sometimes people on their first or second ball will hit a draw, and it just amazes them.
And some of these myths, what's 1 or 2 that you can share with us?
Sure, I will share with you. You know how every time you're with somebody out on the practice tee and you can overhear some of the other people, and you'll hear someone complain that they're not hitting that well, and their friend will go up to them and they'll say, you know what you're really doing? You're just swinging too fast. You've heard that, right?
Yep. My dad tells me all the time.
That's actually a myth because you can't swing the club too fast. The best players in the world are the fastest swingers of the golf club. It's really more in relation to tempo, where you're swinging too fast, where you're swinging too slow. But the problem is when most amateur golfers and average Joes hear that advice that they need to slow down, what they will slow down is they'll slow down their backswing, and then they'll still keep a real fast pace in the initial part of their transition, so it's out of sequence. And what they don't understand is the actual proper sequencing versus slowing down or speeding up. So the best players have actually a relatively fast backswing. Most of the players that you see on tour are completing their backswing in 7/10 to 8/10 of a second. And then their downswing is generally around 3/10 of a second. But it's the transition that's really important. And it's more about timing and tempo than it really is about just slowing down or speeding up. So for the most part, if you hear somebody say you need to slow down, it's just a myth, and that you don't need to slow your club speed down. You need to learn proper tempo.
Hey, Kevin, this makes me want to have a golf show.
I'm down for a golf show.
I mean, what? We were talking 8 or 10 minutes. I've learned more about golf in the last 8 or 10 minutes than I've known my entire life. Do you get a chance to work with kids much? What's that like?
Yeah, kids are a lot of fun. I like to work with kids, and when they're inspired, and they make progress quickly. They're very good visual learners, and they really get excited. So for the most part, about 90% of my business is private coaching with adults. But we do work with the kids sometimes, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, this has been a very interesting conversation. I'm so delighted that we came across you and your work. I want to make sure that our listeners know how to get in touch with you. So give us some coordinates, website, email address, so that the good folks that are out there listening can get their hands on this work and improve their game and improve their business.
The very best place is Grand Rapids Golf Lesson.com. Lesson is singular. That's Grand Rapids Golf Lesson.com. and that has all the coaching info and the book info and media info, everything that they would ever need.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we really enjoyed having you. This is
thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem, Scott. Well, this brings us to a close of another Audio Dust Jacket, and we'll see you next week, same time. Thank you.